Hey guys, it's Tony here, bringing you another episode of TCTV. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you will enjoy the video. Now, I bet you can't help but have noticed if you frequent gaming websites, read magazines, go on Twitter, whatever it is, that a certain game has been released this week, and that is Gears of War 3. It's the third and final, he says in inverted commas, episode of the trilogy. So what I wanted to do in this video was just take a brief look at the Gears of War series from the very first game up until like the third. Now, this is going to be in no way a comprehensive kind of look at the games and whatever goes on in them, because I'd need hours to kind of do that. I'm just going to have a brief look at the plot for each game, what kind of stuff they put in, chat about the characters, this, that and the other. Now, if you're afraid about spoilers, if you haven't played the Gears series before, there may be a few little spoilers in this. If you haven't played Gears 3 yet, there may be a few spoilers that I'm going to be talking about. But listen, I'm not going to be talking about anything about the plot, what happens in the game, because that would be just unfair. All I'm going to talk about regarding Gears 3 is the essential story of the game, what new bits are in there. There may be a little bit of footage that you don't want to see. Again, it's nothing spoilerific, it's just you might want to experience it firsthand for yourself. But, you know, as I said, there's nothing spoilerific in there. If you've played the game, by all means watch, you know, it's going to be absolutely fine. Now, the very first Gears was released in November 2006, and it went on to sell well over 5 million copies. It's more 5.5, something like that. And it follows the exploits of Marcus Phoenix and a group of COG soldiers known as Delta Squad. Now, Marcus Phoenix has been in prison for the past few years. Basically, he disobeyed some orders. He went off to try and rescue his father, which he didn't manage to do. They banged him up for subordinates, whatever. And we join them in their fight against an enemy group called the Locust, which are kind of some lizard, human-type hybrid creatures that kind of live underground. But what they've started to do is emerge from underneath the ground. There's been a huge battle fought, which was known as Emergence Day, where these Locusts came out. And it's just strings of battles between these creatures. We fight on the surface of the planet. We fight underneath the surface of the planet as well, where we're introduced to kind of a material that's known as emulsion. Now, humanity have managed to kind of take emulsion and harness it for like fuel purposes. But there's something else to do with this emulsion as well, which we're not quite sure about. Something to do with the Locust, whatever it is. So, you know, this is basically what the plot is all about. What the humans have decided to do is take a device called a light mass bomb. So if you can kind of imagine some sort of kind of like nuke, what they want to do is plant it down in the Locust kind of like tunnels and everything beneath the surface of the planet, detonate this light mass bomb, and hopefully it's going to eradicate them all. It's going to kill them all. Now, the game's played out of many different locations. There's so many locations in the game, it's really hard to put, you know, your finger on one that kind of like really stands out. But the one that's playing at the moment, which is this kind of like abandoned research facility, absolutely blew me away when I first saw it. I thought that the rain effects and the weather effects and everything were absolutely spot on. And as you can look at the screen, it still looks fantastic today. Gears has held up extremely, extremely well. It's still completely and utterly playable. I went through and played through pretty much about half the game when I was getting this footage. It's absolutely fantastic. Basically, it's a cover system game. You snap in and out of cover. It's really cover based. You can choose from a selection of 4 weapons. There's various different rifles. You know, we're introduced to the Lancer, which is the machine gun with the chainsaw on the end. The Hammer of Dawn, which is kind of like a laser pointer which aligns a satellite, so you can absolutely nuke everything above. There's many characters such as Dom, whose wife has gone missing. He wants to kind of find out what's happened to his wife. There's Coltrane, who's a bit of a loudmouth, arrogant braggart, who's an ex-football player, and he decided to join the military. It plays out through a 5-act campaign. Multiplayer modes as well, which were really good for the time. 4v4 multiplayer. Sounds like there wasn't kind of a lot of players in there, but it was really kind of tight, really kind of like intense. You had the usual modes such as like Team Deathmatch, Warzone, Annex, which was pretty similar to like King of the Hill, but you know, the kind of area that you needed to capture kind of moved from area to area. Gears was an absolutely fantastic game, still stands up today. It's bloody brilliant. So moving on to the second game then, Gears 2. It was released in November 2008, and again it went over to achieve around about 6 million plus sales. It was running on the modified Unreal engine, and as you can see from the screen here, it really did kind of extend the graphical fidelity of the game. Like the detail was just up. The character count was upped. It looks like an absolute $1 million. And pretty much story-wise, once again, we join Marcus and the Delta Squad in their fight against the Locust. Now, following on from the events in the first game with the light mass bomb, the light mass bomb worked, and the light mass bomb went off. It did take out some of the Locusts, but it didn't take out absolutely all of them. There were still remnants underground. There were still remnants kind of like in the cities above. And humanity's at a kind of loss. It's like, I don't know what to do. The Locust are somehow sinking cities. We don't quite know how this is happening, but whole cities are kind of like disappearing underground. Jacinto, the main kind of city where humanity is residing and the cog forces are residing, seems to be pretty safe, as it's built on a huge bedrock of granite that they believe that the Locust cannot burrow through. But surrounding Jacinto, all the surrounding towns and areas, they are being eaten up. They are dropping into the earth. They are completely disappearing. Millions of people are dying. So what humanity decides to do is take the fight to the Locust themselves. They're going to go underground. They're just going to attempt to kind of go down there and wipe out this threat like forever. Excuse me. Just had to clear my throat then. And basically what this allows us to do in the game is to see a lot more of the game world that we didn't see in the first game. We had bits of the underground world in the first game, but it really kind of goes all out with the fight with the Locust, you know, beneath the surface of the planet. That's it. Basically, we're trying to find out what this, what's sinking all of these cities, what the trouble is, and as you can see, the guys are going down in these like little machines, got lasers and drills on the front, burrowing down. All of the other cog soldiers are dropping down with them, but there's no kind of real target. They're all kind of going all over the place. And as we drop through, we kind of run, take down some enemies, and we find out what is sinking these cities. And what is sinking these cities is a huge, giant worm. And, you know, I'm not talking your commoner garden variety little wiggly worm or something. I'm talking about something that's 2 miles long. It's absolutely colossal. This thing is coming along, chewing down cities. It's taking down everything with it. And following kind of like an incident, Marcus and his team find themselves swallowed up by this worm. This worm actually kind of like eats them, and trying to figure a way out. They're trying to think, what can we do? How can we get out of this situation? And Marcus comes up with a plan that they have to kill this worm. The only way they can stop the Locusts from bringing these cities down is to take this worm out from the inside. Now, as you can probably imagine, it sounds like an unenviable task. It's something that I wouldn't want to kind of like do. But lo and behold, being the big beefcake, square-jawed, bloody tough men that they are, they go ahead and decide to do it anyway. And the whole level that's set in the worm is one of the most memorable ones from Gears of War 2 in my eyes. I've actually gone through and played it. It must be about 10 or 11 times. It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, you start off on the inside of this worm, as you're going to see in a second, and you can see the remnants of the cities, cars, people, whatever it is that this thing has been eating. You're almost fighting your way through ruins, but ruins that are surrounded by guts and snot and blood and piss and whatever it is. The very first challenge that you've got is to get past these huge teeth. Now, as you can imagine, for this worm to kind of like chew through all these cities and stuff, it's going to need some serious kind of grinding power. And there's these massive teeth that you've got to kind of get through. And the very first time I did it, I was just getting splattered left, right and centre. There's these huge things slamming down, and you kind of make your way into the depths of this worm after the teeth, and you fight these kind of like little sprouting spider things that are coming out of the guts and whatever it is all around you, and you decide to take out its heart. Marcus reckons if you can take down the heart of this beast, you'll kill it. You go through, you take out one heart, and then you can still hear a heart beating, and it kind of turns out that this thing has got like 4 hearts or whatever, and then it just turns into this absolutely one of the goriest levels I've ever seen in a video game, where you're just running through, chainsawing through the ventricles of this heart. There's blood everywhere. It's filling up to your waist, up to your chest. It just goes oh so bloody messy. And anyway, getting the worm out of the way, you kind of descend further and further into the underground to like the locust fortresses down there, and you come across like some kind of like internal civil war that's kind of like happening between the locust and these newly emergent lambent creatures, and you're not entirely sure exactly what it is. You know, you've just got to kind of go in there and blow the shit out of everything until you kind of like find out. And you come up with the idea that there's only one solution. The only solution is to bring Jacinto down. You've got to sink the city, you've got to flood all of the corridors, and hopefully you're going to drown all the locust. Does it happen? We will have to find out in a few seconds. Now, what they did, they added to the multiplayer modes. They added it up to 5 versus 5, which was fantastic. But the real draw with this game was the Horde mode. Now, the Horde mode, if you haven't ever played it, which I'm sure you kind of like have, was basically 5 members of the COG. You could choose from various different characters, and you had to go through wave after wave of varying enemies. I can't actually remember exactly how many waves of enemies there were. I think there were kind of 50. I maybe should have checked this out before. I think there was about 50. And the very first wave starts off, you've just got like tickers and things like this. By the time it's getting to like wave 3, 4, 5, you're getting like the wretches. And it kind of builds up to, you get to like the maulers, the boomers, the kind of bloodhound creatures that are running around. It's just an absolutely fantastic mode. I sunk hours and hours and hours into it with various people off various game forums. It's still something, when I went to get this footage, it's still something that people are playing today. I just don't know whether it's just that they haven't picked up Gears yet or whatever. But it's a fantastic mode. And so here we go. We come full circle. We start with Gears 3, and we start exactly how we started in the first game. Marcus Phoenix is banged up in prison, and this bit is quite good how they did it. I didn't really notice until I went back to play the first game when I was recording this video, but it's almost like word for word for the very first scene that you kind of like see in Gears 1. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic little touch that they did. And essentially I think what's happened is Marcus has been banged up again just due to the events in Gears 2, flooding the city. It all kind of went wrong. Excuse me. Gears was released on September the 20th. It's only just gone. It had something like 1.5 million pre-orders or something like this. And the story basically is as such that you know, after the destruction of the city, the various COG forces and humanity have just gone to try and get whatever little bits of land that they can find. We find Marcus is kind of like with a load of the other COG soldiers on the deck of this huge kind of like battleship cruiser type thing, and they're just drifting around kind of like salvaging whatever they can. And the beautiful thing about the environment is you can really see that it's kind of like they've just been gathering things that they can. There's lots of scrap machinery around, there's old busted arcade games and whatever. And anyway, some kind of event happens, you have a big fight from the lambent, the newly emerged lambent stalks are kind of popping up all over the world. You're subjected to kind of like daily attacks, and Marcus gets word from a data disk that his father is still alive and well. The person that he's been tracking from the very first start of the first game is alive and well, and he comes out with some news that he may have some kind of technology, he may have some kind of idea about how to defeat the Locust and how to defeat this newly emerging lambent threat once and for all. So essentially that just starts the ball rolling. It's all about Marcus trying to track down his father. Obviously there's other little storylines played out here. We've still got Dom, who's still kind of concerned about his wife after events that kind of like happened in the second game, and we also see another side of Cole that we haven't kind of like seen. Now, you know, there is an argument that the kind of characters in Gears, they're a bit, you know, two-dimensional. They're a bit just blow shit up and ask questions later or whatever. But it was kind of good to see it from kind of like Cole's perspective, because all he really did in the first two games was just swear a lot and scream and whatever it is. But you know, there's a couple of times when you do get to play as Cole, and it kind of fleshes out his character a little bit. There's one kind of section in a level, no spoilers coming up, but there's basically a level where you get to one of the old football stadiums where Cole kind of used to frequent, and it really does add something to his character that I found. And again, the environments, the graphics and everything like that, they've just taken on a completely new lease of life. I mean, it is one of the best looking games that I've ever played, as you can see from the level that's playing through now, the kind of city that has been that was initially destroyed by the Hammer of Dawns, kind of like in events that passed. It was a stunning and kind of slightly disturbing level as well, but you know, that's kind of what I like from games, really. I don't like to just be clean and clinical all the time or whatever. So yeah, basically that's the kind of like essential story. That's the kind of setup with Gears of War, and you know, it just plays out on multiple character arcs. It brings together everything. It ties up all of the loose ends. It's absolutely fantastic and lovely. They've improved on the multiplayer as well. Lots of different stuff that's going on in there. There's the thing that they called Horde 2.0, I think it is, which is basically exactly the same as the very first Horde mode, but now you get to choose a command post in the level. You get to place like a command post and fortify that post with like razor wire, with laser kind of trip wires. You can set up turrets. You can get in walking kind of mechs called silverbacks. You can set up decoys. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's going to take up so much of my time. But the one mode that they've added to it, which I just fell in love with from the very first moment I started playing it, is Beast mode. Now, if you can imagine Beast mode, it's basically Horde mode, but played from the Locust point of view. What the essential setup of the game is, you've got a minute before the Hammer of Dawn is going to strike and kill all of you guys. So you've got to kind of go and attack the kind of cog and human forces. You've got to kind of kill them. The more you kill them, the more you add time to the countdown, and the more money you earn. The more money that you earn, the bigger and badder the creatures that you can unlock. So you basically start off with the tickers, the wretches. Earn a few more quid, you can start to play as like the Cantus Guard or the Blood Mounts or anything like this, and when you're getting into serious money, then you can kind of like unlock the Berserkers, or my favourite, which you're going to see coming up in a second, is the Mini Corpser. It's kind of like it's almost like a giant hand running around the screen smashing things up. It's so much fun to play. I mean, I played it till about 4 in the morning the other day. I'm absolutely addicted. I'm going to be on it all night tonight. It's a brilliant touch. So guys, that was a really brief, I'm out of breath now for talking that long, brief look at the Gears of War series. Of course, there are loads more details I can go in. I've probably missed so much, but that's the kind of series in a nutshell, the basic kind of storyline that's going through it all, and the modes and how they kind of like improved it. So I just want to ask a couple of questions. Have you bought Gears 3? What did you like about it? Did you think it was a fitting end to the series? Would you like to see more? I mean, I know Cliffy B has announced that there is going to be some DLC coming out, which is going to be single player DLC, which you're going to see from other characters' perspectives. You're not really going to be playing as Marcus or as any of the other characters, really. They're going to be opening it up and giving you nice little bits of storylines. I'm predicting right here and now that we're going to be having like a single player mission or something from the Locust point of view, but that's just me. So guys, what did you think about it? Are you enjoying Gears? What did you think of the trilogy as a whole? Do you think there's going to be more Gears of War games coming out? Please leave us a comment, let us know what you think. So guys, this is Tony from TCTV and Thumb Culture. Thank you for tuning into the video. Hope you enjoyed it.